I got a sobriety date of January 13th, 2014. Um, I'm active with a sponsor, currently working on things and related to recovery. And up until last week, I had a sponsee, but he doesn't want to do the work anymore. So it is what it is, that's on him. But I always make myself available for sponsorship because I have to give this thing back just like it was given to me. Let's see. I do have a home group, and I have a service commitment within that home group. That's always been something that's been important to me. If you're ever in St. Louis and you're a man, hit me up and I'll bring you to my home group. If you're a woman and you're looking for a meeting, I'll set you up with a woman who can hook you up with a good meeting. So um, anyway, sorry, I looked at the chat. I don't know why. But um, I was born in St. Louis. I grew up in Southern California though, in Orange County, and lived out there for the first 13, 14 years of my life. My dad's also in this program. He got sober when I was 2 years old, and so it very much runs through our family, mostly through on my dad's side, really. And so I guess I was kind of destined to have this thing. I very much look at alcoholism as a disease and something that runs in the family. At least that's my case. So, I had a pretty good childhood. My dad always put us first and everything, and so and he provided and took care of us. We were all really close. We took the family trips and all that stuff. I always had a lot of friends growing up, and I happened to be, I guess the most negative thing about me was probably that, like, personality wise, is that I was impulsive and I had a short temper, um, and I was impatient. So I got in trouble a lot, just growing up, and that kind of rolled over. And as my alcoholism progressed and everything, that started to roll over into legal trouble and whatnot. And so I was always in the principal's office and everything. Um, and then after, well, my first time I smoked a cigarette, first time I took a hit of weed, first time I drank alcohol was all at the age of 13, and it was a hell of a year. And that was just what we were doing. I didn't like the taste of alcohol at first. I thought it was terrible, but I knew you weren't supposed to do it, so naturally I did it. If you told me not to do something, I was gonna do it. Um, and so I was having a good time, and I wouldn't say that I didn't drink alcoholically, I didn't smoke pot or anything alcoholically. I could pretty much take it or leave it for a while. You know, um, in high school, so right before high school, we moved back to St. Louis, um, and that's where things changed for me. I was very isolated freshman year. I didn't really have any friends. No one really liked me. I didn't really like them because I looked different. I dressed differently and stuff. And I didn't grow up with them. They all grew up with each other and stuff at this one school, and so I was different. And I transferred to a different high school, and that was a little bit easier and everything. And then that's where I started drinking a little bit more. But mostly through high school, I was mostly just a weekend warrior. I would always get my schoolwork done and everything, and then I was partying and everything come the weekend. And so I don't know. I guess mostly through high school is I pretty much just try to do anything I could to fit in, and that's when it was like a slow progression of me slowly losing myself. Because I was always trying to be something I wasn't. Before then, up until I was like 15, I was always comfortable in my own skin. I didn't really care what people's opinions of me were. I just did what I did. And then, starting in high school, I very much valued what people thought of me, and I would do anything to fit in and be accepted by my peers. Um, at that time, I started getting in fights here and there, um, because I felt like I had to or whatever. And you know, I ended up going to I went to college. After high school, I went to Arizona State because they told me. Well, my uncle who lives in Phoenix, he had been kind of grooming me for Arizona State for a while. Every time I'd go visit, he'd drive me by the university, and he'd tell me how big of a party school it was and stuff, and how one day I'm going to go there. And sure enough, I did because he had hyped it up so much. And so, I also told myself it was a great business school, and I always done well academically, so I thought I would do well academically. However, as soon as I got that taste of freedom, and being on my own and everything, you know, I, I just, I completely just went in, and I was drinking really heavily, like 6 nights a week, and the seventh night I would just smoke pot and snort some pills, and that was my day of rest, and I did terribly in school, and that's when I started to start doing things that I had always told myself I wouldn't do, you know, started walking that moral line. And, that's when my alcoholism really started to progress and really started to ignite, and, so I lasted 2 years out there, in my first 5 months of school, I had four felonies. And at the end of my freshman year, I was going to court for four felonies. And, I wasn't doing so hot, out there, and I managed to get those taken care of, and then after 2 years, I went back to St. Louis, and I was just doing the same old, I was bored, really, and I could do anything I could blame my drinking on or whatever. Before it was because I was 19, 20, and that's what everybody was doing at school. When I went back to St. Louis, it was because I was depressed and bored, because I didn't ever want to be back in St. Louis ever again. And so I was, doing the same old thing. And within a couple years of being back home, I got my first DWI, and then a few months later, I got my second DWI, and I had some weed charges and stuff in between those, and the slowly the rap sheet was building, and I didn't really see anything wrong with the fact that I had these DWIs. A lot of people would be like scared shitless, but for me, that was just the life I was living. So therefore, those are the consequences, whatever. And that was my first brush with AA. My parents pretty much said you can move out or you can get sober, and I didn't have enough money saved up to move out because I was too busy spending it all on drugs and alcohol. So therefore, I started going to some meetings and acting like I was sober, but I really wasn't. Um, I met some cool people along the way here and there when I was in AA, but I didn't stay friends with them or anything because they were all sober and I didn't want to be sober. And so I continued that charade for like 2 years, and I did the geographical change and everything, and that doesn't work because I found for myself that I am the problem. So therefore, I just took my problems with me. I managed to stay out of legal trouble while I was in a different city and everything, but um, I was becoming very morally, spiritually, emotionally bankrupt. By the time winter of like the end of 2013, I was pretty much a shell of a person. I didn't even know I didn't know who I was. I was depressed. I was, um, I'd pushed the line so many times, and I pretty much just lost myself. And then I went back home like I always do, and continued to use for like another month. And then I got I got wind that one of my friends that I'd been meaning to reach out to had shot himself in the head, and he drank a lot like I did. Um, and so ultimately, that's what made me kind of do my little self reflection. And I did some reflection over a tall boy over one cold winter night, and decided that my way of doing things was not going to work. I tried to do things my way for a long time, and it never worked. And so I ultimately decided that I was going to give AA a shot again, like actually give it a shot this time, and I'd get a sponsor and work the steps. And at that point, I was actually willing. You know, to me, a there's a lot of talk about like high bottoms, low bottoms, and to me that's all bullshit. It's just like a dick measuring contest. A bottom to me is just the point at which you're willing to surrender. That's what my sponsor is. He described it as, and I kind of have taken that and ran with it because it that's what applied to me the most because it was very much an emotional bottom. I didn't lose everything circumstantially, materialistically. I still had my family and other things, but I wasn't homeless or all this stuff I could keep listing, but on the inside I had lost everything, and and I was done, and so I drank. I got a home group that Friday night, got a sponsor, told him I was going to drink all weekend and I'd be ready on Monday. Now, if I heard that from a newcomer, I'd say bullshit. I'm never going to hear from this guy, and I am a man of my word, and I followed through on that. Um, and really, what it was that I had to bury my friend on Sunday, and I knew I wasn't going to be strong enough to do that sober, nor did I want to do that sober. So I just drank to oblivion all weekend, and I spent my last night drunk in an AA meeting because I had nowhere else to go. I my choices were to sit in my parents' basement by myself, drunk, depressed, and angry, or go to a meeting and see my brother speak because he had been sober. He was sober at that time, and he was going to be speaking at a meeting, and I could be around some people. So I swallowed some Vicodin and went to that meeting, and it was pretty cool because even though I shared in burning desires and called him out on some things that he might have left out, like some emotional harms to my parents and I. No one, sure, they laughed afterward, but like they all invited me out to fellowship. They gave me a ride to fellowship. They gave me a ride home afterward and everything. They accepted me, and that's all I needed at that time. We do for each other what we can't do for ourselves, and this fellowship is really strong. That's what I've learned. And then I worked through the steps and everything, and started sponsoring, and it's been an amazing experience. I learned a lot about myself through sponsoring others, through working through the steps with them, um, and then I got involved in service pretty early on because it was told to me to do that, and so I've just always had a service commitment. I've always had at least one service commitment in my entire length of sobriety. One, out of fear a little bit, and two, because I just feel like that's the right thing to do, and so I do it. Now sometimes I have too much though, and there's I can have too much of anything, like I can turn something really good into something bad and unhealthy easily because I'm an alcoholic, you know. But like Maria was saying, I got involved in YPAW, like these young people's conferences and stuff. And my first one was in Arkansas in 2014, October of 2014, and that one changed the course of my sobriety. Um, it was really awkward, and I was super uncomfortable. I was like 8 or 9 months sober, and I knew like three people, and there was about 650 people there, and we're all on top of a mountain camping. And so I was just forced to be around a lot of people I didn't know, and I was very much in my head. And then I was talking about steps and stuff with this one guy. I didn't know him. He was just some random guy who was standing next to me. Started getting on topic of steps, and I thought he had more time sober than me and everything. And he looks over to me. He's like, "What are you talking about with these steps, man? Tell me more." And I'm like, "Oh, all right, cool. Oh, it's hello, Connor." I said, "Step into my office," and so we talked for like 45 minutes, about basically, well, because I found out he was 3 months dry and wanted to kill himself, and that's pretty much where he was at. And I was at this point, I was like on fire for the program, I was in a very good place, do the step work. And so I told him basically my story, and we talked for like 45 minutes. By the end of the weekend, he was like, every time I'd run into him, he had a smile on his face. He was talking to new people and stuff. And not only that, but it changed my weekend too. It got me out of myself, and I started to have a really good time too. Um, and then that Monday, he called me and he got a sponsor. And he started working the steps, and then every now and then he would just check in. We'd check in with each other, and he went from that to like being like a house manager or whatever at a sober living house, and then he got a good job. And then a couple years ago, I ran into him in St. Louis. He's from Indiana. I ran into him downtown St. Louis at a restaurant randomly, and he was doing really well. And so I don't know, just like that was like a God moment for me. Um, you never know what's going through someone else's head until you like open up yourself and start having that dialogue. Because I have a tendency to compare my outsides or my insides with other people's outsides, and I have no idea what the fuck's going on in their life. Because for 3 months, a couple years ago, if you would have guessed that everything was going great in my life. Because every time I saw somebody, if they asked me how I was doing, I'd tell them, "Oh, I'm doing good," when in reality I wanted to die. And I hadn't been working this program. I was very much dry. I was going to meetings and I was showing up to my one service commitment at the time purely because I wanted to keep up appearances. And I hadn't prayed or meditated in, couldn't tell you how long. And finally I got to a point where I woke up one morning and I wanted to blow my head off. And I almost did, but I played the tape through my head, and I realized I couldn't do that to my family and my friends. And then I was going to relapse, and I was like, well, I can't do that, because then I have to start from day one again, and I don't want to do that. And then I was going to go to the psych ward, and then I thought about that one for a while. And then I called my brother finally and opened up for the first time in a while, and decided that wasn't the best course of action either, because my problems would be waiting for me on the outside. And you know that's a huge thing with me with this program, is it's like willingness and action, right? God gives me the willingness, and it's up to me to take the necessary action. So like I can put anything on pause if I want to, but ultimately everything's going to be waiting for me when I resume again. So I could do that, or I could pray for the willingness and then take the necessary actions, and then things will get better naturally. Um, we hope. But that's at least been my experience time and time again. I've to circle back on the YPAW thing. I've gone to probably close to 20 of them at this point. And at this point, I just love seeing old friends. I love seeing friends that I've made over the years. I got a couch to sleep on in any state I go to pretty much at this point, which is a pretty cool thing. You can't get that really in much, a whole lot of other places other than AA. Um, and I got to serve on the host committee with Maria for St. Louis Monkeypaw, and now I'm on advisory, and I get to I basically just get to lend my experience and advice and suggestions, whatever, to bid committees and host committee, and that's pretty neat. It's kind of like sponsorship in a way, but on a committee level. I'm just giving them what I've gone through in the past, and I stay very active with them because I have fun doing it. Let's see. The only other thing I can think about is like what's going on right now. Up until this weekend, I felt like another emotional bottom was on its way. I was just talking to Connor last week, and on Thursday night, and I was telling him how I was depressed, and I woke up that day And I thought that I had just been coasting in one area of my life, which was my job. And I woke up and realized I wasn't just coasting in one, I was coasting in everything. You know, my relationship with God, my the work I'm doing with my sponsor, pretty much everything. I just was coasting on, wasn't doing much, and it got me. And then I was like, and I feel a little depressed. It's cold and gloomy. I hate it, and but I didn't. I had the self awareness to identify the problem and the solution, but I didn't have the willingness to do anything about it. And that's a tough place to be in, you know. And and also I'm a little entitled, so it's like I want the results, but I don't want to put the work in to do to get the results. It doesn't work like that though. And so I didn't do anything Thursday night. I was gonna call Connor Friday and be like, hey man, my this day sucks too, and because that's just the reality of it. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything different. I didn't take any action, so nothing changed. And then I went away. I went deer hunting this weekend in the country, and I love to be out in nature and to get out, away from the city and stuff. And I did that, and I had a little time with God and had some self reflection time, and it's what I needed. And then I came back refreshed, and now I'm back to taking action. Today was day number one, so we'll see how tomorrow goes. But I was thinking about today when I was working that it was a little reminders that we have a daily reprieve. Now, it's a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of our spiritual condition. However, if today sucks, cool. I can start it over at any time, or I can just go to sleep and I can wake up tomorrow and I can do something different. You know, today was really good. It was just full. It was full of action. I got stuff done, and so now it's like I got to stay present and in the moment, and I got to keep moving forward. Because if I don't keep moving forward, then I get stagnant and then I start to regress, and I can't afford that. Um, anyway, I've gone over my time, so I'll cut it up there. But I appreciate it, guys. I love you, and that's all I got. Thanks.